Uh-oh. You know what? I was afraid I was going to do that one of these days. I grabbed last week's packet instead of this week's.
You know, that's why I do that.
I do that too, but that's what it is, says me. Oh, golly. Got too many piles of paper at my house that I haven't disposed of properly. I can't believe I did that.
Is this mine?
Yeah. Yeah, then yours.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 4th, 2007 meeting of the Salina City Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Joka,
Here.
Commissioner Larson,
Here.
Commissioner Peck,
Here.
Commissioner Perney,
Here.
Commissioner Vanier.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We need to add 2 items to today's agenda. Could I have a motion for that purpose?
Okay, Mayor, I move that we add item 8.3 concerning electronic scoreboard for the Bicentennial Center, and another item, I guess it'd be 8.4 for an executive session.
Motion to add item 8.3 and request for executive session at the end of today's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Oh, I'm sorry.
You seconded it.
I'll second.
Thank you. Sorry about too big a hurry here. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. We will now move on to the citizen forum. Time set aside for any citizen who would like to bring matters to the Commission's attention that are not on the regularly scheduled agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward? If you can give us your name and address.
My name is Larry Warehan. I live at 313 South Estates Drive. I presented the case of us golfers who had been driving our golf carts to the course 2 weeks ago on Monday and suggested some changes which might be made to accommodate us. If you remember, there are presently 40 parking spaces at the municipal golf course, all filled, and 32 additional names on the waiting list. Also, there have been at least 10 to 12 of us who were, until 2 weeks ago, driving our golf carts to the course. We who drive are all located in the vicinity of the golf course. Saturday, I received a letter, as did Les Vince, from the city manager's office signed by the deputy city manager, which basically says, we don't intend to make any changes. It's just your problem. I'd like to go on record as saying all the items mentioned in the letter I feel are excuses as to why the city manager's office does not wish to accommodate us. We are senior citizens for the most part, and I think the city of Salina needs to accommodate the senior citizens. Let me refute these excuses. The letter says, and I quote, "The Parks Department has previously considered constructing additional space at the golf course, but it is necessary to compare the cost of construction with the impact that it would have on cart rentals." It also said that they would recover the cost in 3 to 5 years if they did construct it. I'd like to remind you that I paid a $567 annual membership last year and played 163 rounds of golf. Only once or twice did I ride with another golfer, so I did use my cart 160 times at least and paid $7 per time trail fee. That's $1,120. That plus the $567 annual fee is $1,687, $1,687. I know of several other golfers who played this much or more. Are you prepared to lose this income if we pull out and go to the Elks? I talked to several other senior golfers who said that they would just sell their carts and quit playing if the city of Salina was not going to accommodate us in some way. The letter said also that construction of additional golf cart storage space may make it necessary to increase cart storage fees, cart rental fees, trail fees, and/or green fees. And I would ask why anything other than the cart storage fees would have to be increased. Let the cart storage pay for itself. As I said last time, with all the tournaments, 4 to 5 per week, and almost every tournament player playing from a rental cart, how in the world can the course not be making money? The letter said, and I also quote, "Some municipal courses prohibit private golf carts and only have rental carts." Is this the way you want to treat the citizens of Salina? I believe there are very few courses, municipal courses that is, that do prohibit ownership of carts. I have played on many of them, and I don't believe this is true. There might be a few. All of these excuses, as I call them, are referring to the course making money and are not concerned with accommodating the citizens of Salina, namely senior citizens who either have their name on a waiting list for cart storage or have been transporting their golf carts to the course. I believe very strongly that the city will lose more revenue by not accommodating us because of golfers who transfer to Elks or River Bend, which has already happened in a few cases, or golfers who hang it up for good, and I've talked to several who would do this, than they would by trying to accommodate the citizens of Salina, mostly the senior citizens of Salina. Is the name of the game only revenue, or is it supposed to be a benefit for the community? Thank you. Did you want
You pretty well covered it.
Any additional staff comment? I know that there has been some looking into, you also raised some legal issues at the last meeting.
Right. The beginning of that letter covered the Attorney General's opinion as it relates to city's ability to allow golf carts on city streets. And basically, community tried to do that by charter ordinance, and it was determined that they didn't have the authority to do so. Golf carts are subject to the safety and registration regulations of state statutes. So that then leaves the issue of storage, which I found out before this meeting you failed to receive a copy of the letter, which we will get you, but it goes into much of the logic that was described in terms of weighing the cost of construction and the current fees of $175 to $200 a year for cart rental and its ability to recoup the construction costs, let alone its impact on other revenues.
If the city were to build more storage space for golf carts, is that something that would be initiated by the Parks and Rec Commission, probably?
Yes. In fact, that was going to be my suggestion, is these comments can be referred back to the Parks Board and the Parks and Rec Commission, but apparently they've previously considered this issue and chosen to leave the amount of storage at the current level.
I don't suppose you know off the top of your head how long ago that was, or?
No, I'm sorry I don't. I know it's been fairly recently, but I couldn't tell you a date.
Might be appropriate to take a look. I mean, might be appropriate to take a look at that again if it
Right.
hadn't been done so in the last 3 years, for example. Or
I know they didn't take up this issue in response to the comments 2 weeks ago. The Parks Department and the Parks Director did, and that was the basis of the explanation provided in the letter.
okay.
So we certainly can refer these comments to them.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to awards and proclamations. I don't believe there are any today. So that will bring us to public hearings and items scheduled for a certain time.
Item 5.1, public hearing on petition number 4296, requesting a vacation of utility easement in Liberty Edition number 2, sub-item 5.1A, first reading ordinance number 07-10392.
I will open the public hearing and
Mayor, I need to recuse myself from this
You.
discussion.
call on Mr. Place.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Petition number 4296 was filed by James Hall on behalf of Molly Carter, CEO of Sunflower Bank. The purpose of the requested easement vacation is to facilitate the on-site drainage system for the new Sunflower Bank building. The easement currently does not house any utilities. All public and franchise utilities have been notified of the proposed vacation and have indicated they have no objection to the easement vacation. It is recommended that the City Commission approve ordinance number 07-10392 on first reading, vacating the west 20 feet of Lot 1, Block 1, less the south 10 feet of the corrected plat of Liberty Edition number 2. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Place? Seeing none, thank you very much. I would invite any public comment, if there is any. There being none, we'll bring it back to the commission and close the hearing.
This looks like a straightforward development procedure, so I would move that we adopt ordinance number 07-10392 on first reading.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion is to adopt ordinance 07-10392, which vacates the utility easement in Liberty Edition number 2. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 4-0, with Commissioner Vanier recusing himself. We will now move on to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of May 21, 2007. Item 6.2, approve the minutes of May 25, 2007. Item 6.3, approve allocation of funds and authorize the mayor to sign the grant award notification and the finance director to sign budget itemizations for each local agency for the 2007 Kansas Emergency Shelter Grant Program. Item 6.4, award a contract for the 2007 curb gutter and concrete pavement improvements, project number 07-2645 to Pavers Incorporated in the amount of $176,600. Item 6.5, resolution number 07-6402, authorizing a license agreement with WJKM LLC to allow construction of a canopy structure over a public sidewalk in front of 213 South Santa Fe Avenue.
Does any commissioner wish to pull any particular item off the consent agenda to ask questions about it? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second. Motion is to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. We will now move on to development business.
Item 7.1, consider vacation of airport taxiway and unneeded utility easements and acceptance of utility drainage easements in a portion of Block 5 of the Airport Industrial Center subdivision and authorize the mayor to sign the plat.
Mr. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Commissioners, this is a proposed replat of 4 lots at the far west end of the Airport Industrial Center subdivision. These lots will be located at the west end of Vortex Avenue and Wall Street. The original platting in this area dates back to 1988, and the first phase of improvements that went in there was for the north half along Wall Street. That area is largely built out, but there is some vacant property at the far west end abutting the runway. Back in 1999, there was a single lot replat for a lot that was to be put in order for an industrial prospect that needed access to the runways via a direct taxiway. That replat was approved in 1999, but there was no development that occurred on that as a result of that replat, so that property's remained dormant since that time. There is now a proposal to build a facility for geoprobe on that same lot, and in looking at that area, there are several items that the Airport Authority wanted to clean up. One related to elimination of the taxiway right-of-way, as they don't see this as an area that would be devoted to aviation businesses that would need direct runway access. They're also looking to vacate and dedicate new easements for a 12-inch water line that runs through the property, and so they are going to realign that water line because unfortunately the way it was laid in there originally, it's right in the heart of those building lots, and so to the south they're pushing the water line to the west, and they've already relocated the water line to the east on the north piece at the end of Wall Street. So those are the main elements of the replat: is vacation of the taxiway, vacating utility and drainage easements that are in the wrong place, and dedicating easements back. So again, this is essentially a cleanup item of unnecessary easements and the taxi right-of-way. Planning Commission reviewed this replat on May 15th, and they voted 8-0 to approve the replat, subject to certain technical corrections being made, which have since been made. And there will be a requirement that as the remaining 2 vacant lots develop, that plans for on-site and off-site drainage improvements be approved as those lots are developed. We believe this is in order for your consideration today, and if you agree with the action of the Planning Commission, a motion should be made to vacate the airport taxiway and the unneeded utility easements on the original plat. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Andrew?
No questions.
There being none, I'd entertain any public comment. Commission action?
Again, this is straightforward wheels of progress, so I think we need to proceed in accordance with the Planning Commission recommendation, and I move that we vacate the taxiway and unneeded utility easements and accept the offered easement dedications and authorize the mayor to sign the new plat.
Second.
Motion is to vacate an airport taxiway and unneeded utility easements and acceptance of utility drainage easements in a portion of Block 5 of the Airport Industrial Center subdivision and authorize the mayor to sign the plat. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 7.2, application number PDD 93-6D, requesting an amendment to the Golden Eagle Estates Edition PDD.
Mayor, Commissioners, what you have on the screen is the outlines of the area that we're focusing on. The larger area, starting with Huntington on the west and Magnolia on the south, is the Golden Eagle Estates Edition. We're focused on an area that was platted as a single platted lot for a cluster townhome development. The history of Golden Eagle goes back to 1993, and that was when the original plat was filed. In 1999, there were some amendments and reconfigurations. Those were done primarily, this street used to come through like this. That was never built, and then this connection was made with the river trail to the other side. And then back in 2002, there was another change initiated as a result of desire to construct that Eagle Crest retirement community. Through all of that, Eagle Crest Avenue, which is a street that connects to Magnolia Road, has not been built, and as a result of that, this area is left there in the center that has not been developed. What the applicants are proposing to do here is just slightly change the development concept. The original concept was to do something like you would see up at Fairway Estates by the golf course, or Manchester Manor that's on South Ohio, where you'd have a cluster of townhomes with private drives and a common area. What they're proposing to do now is to construct a street that would come off of Eagle Crest Avenue, come up here in a cul-de-sac. That would be a public street, and then sell off individual lots for townhome development. The plan to amend the planned development district would result in 20 dwelling units being built. They would be townhomes. Two of the buildings would have 3 units, the remainder would have 2, and they're requesting a couple of exceptions. One is that we measure the setback from the property line instead of the center of the street, which would allow all units to be within 25 feet of the proposed street, and then a reduction to have a rear yard setback of 20 feet. Again, the actual change in land use is, there is not a change, it's just a change in how the use is arranged, and it will probably result in a slightly less amount of total units than what was approved for originally. So the only change in character would be that with a cluster townhome development, you usually have an owners association, and there's one entity that takes care of all the landscaping and lawn. With this type of arrangement, you have individual owners. They'll each own half of a townhome unit and maintain their yards, or the common, there wouldn't be any common area, so it would be maintained to whatever standard they have. I think the only thing that we work closely with the engineer on in this case is this is an area that's very flat, and water tends to get trapped in the rear yards. So we're going to work with the developers and their engineer to come up with a system so that the water that's up at that end does not get trapped by the townhome development. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this on the 15th of May. There were no neighboring property owners who appeared or had asked any questions about the request, and the Planning Commission, after reviewing it, voted 8-0 to recommend the approval of the amended plan and the amended plan layout. And so this first item just goes to the underlying zoning for the property and how it's to be developed and with how many units. There were a number of recommended conditions, and those are incorporated into the ordinance that's attached for your consideration. So if you concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation, the attached ordinance that summarizes those conditions should be approved on first reading. I'd be happy to take any questions about this request.
Questions of Mr. Andrew? If there are none, I'd entertain any public comment. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for action.
Mayor, I would move for approval of ordinance number 0710391, approving the application PDD 93-6D, requesting an amendment to the Golden Eagles Estates Edition PPD to convert an area set aside for cluster townhomes with a private street and common area to 9 individually owned platted lots for townhomes on a public street.
Second. Motion is to adopt 07-10391, requesting amendment to the Golden Estates PDD, making the changes outlined. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 7.3, consider acceptance of offered easement and right-of-way dedication in the Eagle Crest Twin Homes Edition and authorize the mayor to sign the plat.
Mr. Andrew?
Dustin, could you go ahead and put that back up? This is a companion item with the previous item, and this particular application is to replat the one large lot and block into 9 different residential building lots. It would also create a public street that they're proposing to name as Katy Court. The replat that's spoken to in here that last occurred here was to come in here and create this street connection here. It was missing eliminate a street here, and it actually had townhome lots along Eagle Crest Avenue here. That was changed when the retirement community went in and ended up buying more property and shifting their property to the west. Those townhome lots were wiped out. Just a couple items about this. They, as part of this application, they will construct Eagle Crest Avenue all the way. They will connect Falcon View here and complete that street, and then construct the north-south street here. Drainage will come down the cul-de-sac, come down this way to the ditch here along Magnolia Road, and drain into the Huntington Road ditch. It's difficult to tell from this aerial photo. The only glitch involved in constructing the street is that the contractor who put the fence in for the retirement community got outside the bounds just a little bit and put the fence where the street is supposed to go, so they're going to have to relocate that fence slightly to the east to accommodate construction of the street. But Eagle Crest Avenue will be constructed as a residential street with sidewalk on both sides, and we're exploring a couple options for drainage. One is to have flumes in the rear yard that would collect water and bring it here and here. The other is to use swales at the side yard, but the goal is to get the water out to the street and down to there. The Planning Commission reviewed this replat at the same time as the PDD amendment and found that everything was in order, and approved the proposed replat subject to the condition that Eagle Crest Avenue be completed in conjunction with any public improvement project for this area, and that the city engineer approve final design plans for rear yard drainage before they begin any construction. With that, I'd be happy to address any questions about the replat, but if you're in agreement, then a motion should be made to authorize the mayor to sign the plat.
Once again, questions of Mr. Andrew?
It's more idle curiosity, refreshing my memory. Is Huntington, the big ditch in Huntington, does that actually flow north, or does it flow south and down and gets collected and goes to the sand pit? I can't remember.
It flows north and runs into the Holmquist Oxbow or the Red Fox area.
Okay.
There's an area north of Wayne that's not very well improved, and that will need to be improved when the area north of Wayne develops. But the water does get, it starts down here and ends up in the Oxbow up by Red Fox Lane.
So it's an area farther east that actually runs backwards down toward the Knox sand pit?
Yes.
Okay.
Not this area.
And when will the drainage matters be worked out as they proceed with?
Well, what will happen is that the engineer working for the developers will submit his design plans for the design of Eagle Crest Avenue and the cul-de-sac street. As part of that street design, he'll also submit his plans for how he would drain the rear yard, so that will be part of the extension of the street drainage system. And so they'll have to show our city engineers how that will all fit together before those plans are approved and they start doing any construction.
Okay.
Will this be financed through the city?
We anticipate that Eagle Crest Avenue, that they will special assess that because they have an agreement with the retirement community that they will pay half the cost of that street. So it would be in their best interest to do that through a benefit district and split the cost half and half.
Okay.
And how important is it to fix the fencing situation? Where they accidentally built, I mean, is that something that is going to be done right away also?
Well, what they'll do is they'll start, as they lay out the street and the survey crews get out there for laying out the street, they'll encounter what we've already seen on the surveys, that the fence is in the way, and we've already sent a letter to the retirement community indicating to them that when the street is ready to be constructed, they will need to relocate their fence.
So it'll be happening about the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any additional questions to staff? Seeing none, I invite any public comment. There being none, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I would move we accept the offered easement and right-of-way dedications and authorize you to sign the plat.
Second.
Motion is to accept the offered easement and right-of-way dedications in the Eagle Crest Town Twin Homes Edition and authorize the mayor to sign the plat. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. We will now move on to items of administration.
Item 8.1, Resolution Number 076401, amending the comprehensive fee schedule by establishing rental fees for the Bicentennial Center.
Mr. Rawlings?
Thank you very much. As we do regularly, the center staff and the finance department completed an annual review of our financial status, and at the conclusion of the one following the 06 year, and as we start into 07, we found that there was a noticeable reduction in our planned year-end balance. We have that balance, by the way, is projected to be right around $200,000. That's our goal. We do not expect that the center is ever going to be totally self-sufficient, but we're doing everything we can to try to keep that gap to a minimum. We did analyze some of the reasons for that, in our opinion. Those include some unanticipated maintenance expenditures in 06 and early 07, and some notable increases in food costs. In looking at those, we are all pretty much in agreement that, in our opinion, the expenditures that we have incurred do seem to be reasonable and within normal ranges, even though they're more than we would like to see. The revenues, however, have not kept pace with all of that, and while there are several ways of accomplishing, remedying that situation, we're asking you today to consider three. The most significant of which is a rate increase of our rental charges. It's been almost 9 years since the last increase. So as I said, we're recommending three changes. First of all, a 10% rental rate increase across the board beginning July 1st. We will honor any outstanding contracts or commitments that we've made under the old rate structure through the remainder of the year to try to minimize that impact on people that have already entered into agreements with us. We're anticipating that based on the last 2 years of revenue, that alone would increase our revenue by around $20,000 to $28,000. The second recommendation is that we reduce our rent discount for meal functions, which is currently 50% for the portion of the building being used for these meal functions, down to 10%. We're anticipating that alone would increase our revenue by, let's get the page turned here, approximately $10,000 to $15,000. The third item is one that is going slightly the other way, in that, as you know, and as we'll discuss here a little later in the meeting, we have finalized our partnership agreements with 5 sponsors, 2 of whom are anchor sponsors in the $80,000 to $100,000 range. And as part of that, we've been requested to ask, and we're in agreement with, requesting that the new anchor sponsors be permitted to utilize 2 of our meeting room rentals per year for up to $350 per use, subject to time and space availability. We're anticipating that at the most, that would reduce the revenue by $1,400 per year, but we are not expecting them to fully use that. We're just we are offering that and placing that out as an incentive for our anchor partners. We would ask that you also note that the resolution would allow us to continue to modify periodically the rate structure under special circumstances. We do require some flexibility as we negotiate contracts, especially for entertainment and admission, events that charge admission. If you'll note, or as you look through the proposed rate change, or the rate schedule, I mean, you'll continue to see a note of a certain minimum rent, or 10% in this case of gross ticket sales. Frequently, we are asked to cap that once we get into the percentage, and it's been important over the 30 or 28 years that we've been open that we've been able to continue to do that. The reduction of the rent discount on meals from 50 to 10%, we believe that that will not only increase our revenue, we believe that it will still allow us to favorably negotiate with potential clients. And another example would be the organizations that hold regular scheduled meetings, which is primarily our civic clubs, which meet in our building usually weekly in morning meetings, breakfast meetings, or luncheon meetings. We charge them only the price of the meal. We do not charge them rent. We would not propose to change that relationship, because it does allow us to utilize the facility at times when we might not have another rent-paying client in, but we do have the ability to bump them out if, with 30 days notice, if we do find the opportunity available to rent the facility for a rent-paying client. We are also going to be looking at a review of our menus and meal pricing. We're going to be looking at some policies regarding discounts for city departments. Anyway, at the fiscal note that you'll see there is we're estimating that the potential increased revenue of all three of these actions, of these recommendations, would be an approximate $30,000 to $40,000 increase. Therefore, we are recommending that the City Commission adopt resolution number 07-6401.
Questions, Mr. Rawlings?
Yes, Mr. Rawlings, can you tell me, I'm kind of new at this, what is an anchor advertising partner, and are they contracted yearly, or are there contracts every 2 years, every 3 years?
This is new to us, too. The particular terms that we're using now there are three different categories of sponsors. There are premier sponsors, there are preferred sponsors, and then there are anchor sponsors. And those those definitions are set by the amount of money that they are committing to us per year for a multiple year period of time. The smallest one we have is a 3-year period commitment, and that's at a lower level sponsor. All of the anchor sponsors are a certain amount of money per year for 10 years. So one is going to pay actually cash up front in the amount of about $80,000. The other will be paying $10,000 a year for 10 years for a total of $100,000.
Okay.
And those are the only two that we're proposing could take advantage of the discount.
And then another quick question. You said that some of the people were not going to be affected by these rates. They're going to be grandfathered in, those who already have contracts in place through the end of the year. Do you have any already affecting, like the 08 or 09, that you have to go to them now and tell them we're going up? And do you anticipate any kind of a situation there?
Well, I'm sure they're not going to
You happy?
appreciate it.
Yeah. But do you have very many of those?
We continually have annual events that book us multiple years out. We do not have contracts, however, with them
Okay.
for those periods of time. So at the time we begin to renew those for anything past July or January 1, we will definitely make sure that they are in the new rate structure. As I said, I'm sure they're not going to appreciate it, but I think that it's something that they will not be surprised by. But we do intend to honor any current agreements, contracts that we have with anyone through the end of the year, even though the rent proposal would take effect in July.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The increase, you say, in food costs, do you not pass those increases along?
It's a balancing act. We try to pass those along as much as we can. They fluctuate greatly. We try, however, to give clients a turnkey operation when they come to us to where they know what those are. We do some juggling with the types of foods that we offer. We sometimes are forced to charge a market rate, but for the most part, those are not easy to do. So we pretty much talk to them in terms of a one entree meal or two entree meal at certain rates. So we continually look at those. We have adjusted those, and we're going to take a comprehensive look at those here in the next month.
And I guess I'm a little surprised that the last rate increase was 9 years ago. I, for one, think that's bad policy, and don't know of many other organizations that would wait that long to increase their rates. Is this not something maybe we should look at annually?
Well, I agree with you. I do think, however, that probably at least every 2 to 3 years it's something that we need to look at. We certainly need to look at it annually, but as far as increasing the rates, depending a lot on the status at the time, I think that at least every 2 or 3 years would be much more in keeping and much easier to accept. But an annual increase is certainly something that would be even easier to accept, other than just the tinkering with the rates.
Mm-hmm. And with the rate increase and other things you've proposed would allow what did you say, $30,000 to $40,000. With is that still going to put us below our target balance of 200,000, or?
For '07, I think that it may still put us below that, and we're going to address that in some other ways. We're working in the finance department, the city manager's office, to do that. But we're trying to do everything we can to minimize that impact.
Okay. And just for my own curiosity, would you speculate on how the redevelopment of that entire area could help, possibly help, the Bicentennial Center?
It's a big speculation.
Well, I think that's obviously a question we've struggled with for many years, and one that we are looking forward with great interest to what the new committee comes up with and recommends to you. I think any improvements over there are going to enhance our position greatly. I think that it's probably no secret that even though the county is the one in the spotlight right now, our building is also approaching 30 years of age, and I think it's also going to need some attention in the near future. We're doing what we can to maintain it, but as far as keeping it fresh, that's another matter. But I think any improvement that the county makes, or any adjustment that we make in our relationship with them, is going to help us.
What about hotel facilities, recreation facilities?
We've said from the beginning that...
Plead the fifth if you don't want to answer.
You give him a time limit
I
here?
just tend to get in trouble by answering. A hotel would certainly improve our position as far as conferences are concerned, conventions, and that is one of our moneymakers is that type of an event. We do best in those. We do second best in entertainment. But we're continually hampered by the lack of lodging nearby. We are continually trying to be creative in working with the existing hotels, and the Chamber of Commerce has been extremely helpful in working with us to develop shuttles to and from the hotels. But that is a major disadvantage that we have to a lot of other convention centers around the country.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Is there enough data in yet on the sporting event category that was added this past year has affected your bottom line?
No, not yet. We're still in the middle of the season with the Cagers, and until we finish that, we really won't have any analysis of that. You will note, however, that even that has been increased by 10% in the new proposal, so I'm anxious as well to see what effect that might have.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Out of curiosity, civic clubs currently only pay for the food as well. I mean, there is no rent.
Yes, as long as they will take the food that we have available for them and they don't specify menus, then we only charge them for their meal cost, which we also have just raised effective August 1st.
What kind of an increase there?
We've been charging them $5 a person. It's gone to $6
Oh.
effective August 1st, which is still, I think, less than most of them would be able to expect to pay if they went to local restaurants. And they do get an opportunity to try those when we bump them and compare us. For the most part, they all still prefer to come back. So it's one of those mostly win situations.
I'm assuming that's a pretty small part of revenue then.
It's extremely small. In fact, it's probably, we're doing our best to keep that at break even.
Okay.
When you give them a discount, is it when they use your catering service, or do you allow other catering services to come in?
When the discount is utilized, it's any outside caterers or internal caterers that use it, as long as the portion of the facility that's being used for the food it has full food service being provided. We do allow outside caterers to come in. We do have to have them on an approved list. It's very easy to get there, but the clients all have that freedom.
That's very generous. I'm surprised that you even offer that
Well,
discount.
we think it's probably too generous and has
It
been
is.
for quite a while,
It is.
so we think that will help us considerably at the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd invite any public comment on the proposed changes in the fee schedule. There being none, I entertain commission action.
Mayor, I would move we adopt resolution number 076401, amending the City of Salina comprehensive fee schedule by establishing rental fees for the Buy Center.
Second.
Motion is to approve Resolution 07-6401, amending the comprehensive fee schedule for the Bicentennial Center. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 8.2, receive report on contractor license fees.
Mr. France?
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. At the recent meeting where we established fees for licensed contractors, City Commission requested a staff report regarding the costs related to the licensing activity. We've spent some time reviewing our licensing fees and costs. We did so in relationship to 3 benchmarks. Basically, we looked at all of the licenses and how they compared to one another, the professional trades licenses, that being electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and building contractors, and they all involve similar activities, so you would expect that the fees would be set at a similar level. We looked at as a comparison to some of our peer cities, and then we also tried to look at it from the standpoint of cost recovery with respect of establishing estimate of costs of the licensing activity and then how that equates when spread to individual licenses. We currently license 3 groups of trades contractors, those being, as I said, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical trades, along now with new building contractors. Essentially all of those groups of contractors pay a $150 fee, which is the same as the building contractors for a 3-year license. Those other 3 trades also license their qualified individuals, which of course the building trades do not as a part of the proposal for their licensure. There may be some good reasons for that differential. I did not investigate that. Another form of benchmarking is to look at some comparable cities, and you have the list available to you there. They range from a high of 3-year fee of $600 in Lawrence and Olathe, to a low of $225 in Emporia for their Class B license. As you can see, Salina compares fairly favorably at $150. I think it's important to note that all of those cities issue one-year licenses as opposed to our practice of issuing three-year licenses, and I'm sure that has some effect on the relative costs of that activity. It's probably not a one-for-one trade because there are some activities such as the insurance renewal that we have to keep track of that happens on an annual basis anyway. But at least the renewals are done every 3 years, which is, I believe, a time savings for us and probably for the contracting community also. And then the third thing we looked at is we attempted to cost out the activity of issuing licensure. Somewhat of a challenge because, of course, we haven't done building trades or contractors' licenses. We haven't gone through a full cycle of that yet, but based on our experience with the other three trades, we did make some estimations of staff times involved and allocated overhead costs and so forth, and tried to develop a range of what we thought those costs might be, allowing for some errors in estimation and so on. The result is we think it probably costs us somewhere on the order of $47,000 to $56,000 a year to do the licensure. We collect about $41,000 per year, so it's I guess you could say it's in the ballpark. We're a little bit short of collecting full costs, but not terribly far out of line with that. To summarize, the contractor's license fees are low by all three methods. They're equivalent to other trades license fees, but lacking the qualified individual fees. We're low compared to other cities, and of course we do business slightly differently, which explains some of that discrepancy. And then we do recover somewhat less than the full cost of providing the service, but relatively close to that cost. I believe that we did receive communication from the Home Builders Association.
Yes, we followed up with the Home Builders Association after this information was compiled, and they indicated that after approaching the City Commission, they'd done a little research on their own of other communities and came to a similar conclusion that our rate was favorable compared to others, and they didn't have an issue. And they were made aware that it was going to be on this agenda for discussion, and they're not here today.
Surprise.
You know, this is not an action item, but in the fiscal note I did take note that there are a number of things that could be done. One is take no action, which would of course just validate the or confirm the existing rates. You could direct staff to pursue a number of other courses, implement full cost recovery, which I believe would end up in a fee of on the range of $170 to $190 a year. Establish fees at a pure city market, which would be probably on the order of $300 to $600 for a three-year license, or attempt to structure the building contractor's fees similarly to the other specialized trades with a fee for the qualified individuals. And all of those would probably require some additional staff work to ensure that they went smoothly. Be glad to entertain any questions.
Question, Mr. France?
Is this going to add any more work? Obviously, the people that are doing the permits, this has added quite a little bit of a...
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers of licenses that
Right.
will be issued, this is a fairly substantial change. What we've done is we've reallocated some duties for that primary licensure position, which is in the city clerk's office. They used to help out substantially with scanning, for example. That's going to have to be reduced somewhat. We've changed some of the other ways we do business. We do have a budget for a temp position, part-time position. We'll probably have to utilize that more in terms of some of the scanning and so on. So yeah, there is a trade-off.
Okay, so
you
a
know.
full-time person, probably, there's not going to be an expense to another salaried or a full-time person, but you will
No.
spread it out and then
Yeah.
have to have some temporary help also.
Probably, yes.
Okay.
You know, when we get into this, maybe it'll go as smooth as glass, and it just won't be very much
Right.
work at all, but I'd be surprised,
Right.
you know.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I will, thank you, Mr. France. I invite any public comment. Commission comment and/or action, or?
Well, Mayor, I fail to see why we need to do this at a loss. If we're only talking about an increase of possibly $20 to $40 over a 3-year period, I guess my request, if that's the form it should take, would be to direct staff to go back and prepare action that would implement a full cost recovery.
Yeah, my thought had been, they were guessing 170 to 190. If we, for example, put it at 175, we're still lower than everybody on the list. Point being, I agree with you.
Okay.
I don't know. Since we're in this big transition to licensing from registration, I kind of like the idea of leaving it as is through the first few months and then bump it the first of the year. Bump it to, say, 200 instead of 150 at the first of the year. I don't know if that's better or worse, if that would make more people, more contractors stampede to make sure that they get converted to a license right away. But obviously, we will have new contractors coming up in another year that may not be working in Salina right now. If we raise the rate next year, they'd be on the new rate, and their 3-year phase would be out of phase with everybody that's converting right now. I don't know.
I would prefer to take my punishment all at once, though.
Okay. Are you a contractor? Oh, I'm looking at it from the paying side.
Well, from staff's perspective, we certainly can look at full cost recovery, and we will need to look at implementation. We've got some different timeframes in the current ordinance in terms of implementation. But I would tell you from development services perspective, our primary focus was transitioning from registration to contractor licensing, which was a significant improvement in our mind, and the fees were secondary. But we certainly can look at full cost recovery and how we might implement that.
Do we need a motion to accept the report
That would be fine.
with instructions too, or?
Well, if we accept the report, then we're basically endorsing the $150. Is that correct?
I think if you want to accept the report with the instructions to report back further with respect to full cost recovery, we can certainly do that.
Then I would make that motion. We accept the report and direct staff to prepare action implementing full cost recovery.
Second. Motion is to accept the report here and ask staff to pursue full cost recovery. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 8.3, acquisition of electronic scoreboard equipment and related advertising displays.
First of all, I want to thank you
Rollins?
for placing this on the agenda for today. Secondly, probably 3 of you are tired of seeing me back here for this topic, because this is at least the 4th time I've been here to talk to you about it. For 2 of you, it may be new. Thirdly, I am close to elated that we are as close to the finish of this as possible, as we appear to be. A little bit of background. In February of '05, we came to the City Commission and received authorization to enter into a marketing plan with Daktronic Sports Marketing Incorporated to pay for some electronic improvements in and around the arena, primarily a new scoreboard. Working with them, we acquired 4 new corporate sponsors, and this is kind of what I was alluding to Commissioner Larson's question, who are willing to commit to terms of 3 to 10 years of sponsorship in exchange for advertising opportunities at the center. In December of '06, when we had all of that put together, the Commission authorized us to proceed with the lease purchase of the necessary equipment and the signage we needed to satisfy the terms of the advertising agreements with those sponsors. And the purchase price of the equipment at that time was to be $194,000 and would require some financing that we said we would report back on, which we did on in January of this year. We again approached the Commission to finalize the project and authorize the funding mechanism. At that time, it was the Commission's preference that the project be financed internally with general fund resources rather than utilizing the lease purchase option. Before we were able to finalize the 4 agreements, in other words, to get the final signatures going back and forth with their attorneys, our attorneys, and everyone else, a 5th sponsor approached us about being included in the project. We did come to agreement with them and acquired a 5th 10-year sponsor, bringing our total number to the 5, as I said. By adding that sponsor, we were able to significantly upgrade the equipment we were trying to purchase, which had already been downgraded a little bit because we were not able to get the 10 that we were hoping for, at a modest increase, but still increase the funds returning to the general fund to pay for the project. In other words, the purchase price of the equipment has increased from $194,000 to $209,250, or a little over $15,000, but the return is increased by $30,000. So you'll see under the fiscal notes section a chart that attempts to compare January 22nd status when we were here, or when I was here to report to you on the advertising commitment and the potential commitment, with the current status of advertising and potential commitments on the right side of that graph. Basically, the actual commitment went from $251,000 plus to $281,000. That is the $30,000 additional sponsor that I've referred to. There are several items in the strategic plan that this complies with. I think probably one of the most noteworthy is the fact that priority consideration to be given to projects which specifically replace or renovate an essential but obsolete facility and are funded in whole or in part by leveraged funds. Therefore, we are asking that you reauthorize the project at the higher amount of $209,250, but utilizing the same general fund resources that you authorized in December of '06.
Questions, Mr. Rawlings?
What is the significant upgrade in the equipment?
Primarily, it's the resolution on the scoreboard. When we proposed the project originally, we were hoping for a high-resolution video board. When we were unable to get the bulk of the sponsors that we had hoped to, we downgraded it to a more of an animation board at a moderate resolution. And by doing this, we're still not able to make the jump back up to a full video board, but we have increased the resolution on that board to about as high as we can go without making that jump.
Is it likely that this equipment will last the 10-year payout period?
Well, I certainly hope so. The firm that makes the equipment is the same one that's made what's in there for the last 28 years, and with some minor refurbishments to it, it's served us well. But if any of you are familiar with computers, much of that is on 5¼ floppy disks, so we have easily outpaced our ability to continue to upgrade it.
Is this something that can be serviced later on or be upgraded at all?
The electronic equipment? Absolutely, it can be. I'm sure that some of the display itself on the scoreboard would be necessary to replace that. Some of it can't be just by software upgrades.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm probably almost as excited about is a couple of fairly large LCD displays that we're going to place in the lobby to allow us to assist clients who are there with upcoming events to do some advertising in that, replacing our manual letterboards. And if any of you would like to, following the meeting, look at the pamphlet that we have been using with our sponsors, I'd be happy to do that. I might add, I've kind of danced around this for the past meetings because we've never actually had signed commitments from all of them, so I've been a little unwilling to say who those are with, but if you've been in our building, most of those signs are starting to appear, and so I would like to at least announce that we do have the 10-year commitments for our anchor sponsors would be Coca-Cola and U.S. Cellular. We have a 3-year commitment from Domino's Pizza, and we have 10-year commitments out of both Midwest Security and Holiday Inn. So those are our 5 ongoing sponsors for this project. It's more than you asked, but...
No, that's good. Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you. Public comment? Commission action?
Mayor, I would move that the City Commission reauthorize a project at the Bicentennial Center in the amount of $209,250, utilizing the same general fund resources.
Second.
Motion is to reauthorize said project in the amount of $209,250, utilizing the same general fund resources. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
I want to remind all the citizens, this is Festival Week. Get out there and buy your buttons and be there this weekend, starting Thursday. And then Mayor Jelka, I want to move that the City Commission recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss with the City Attorney a matter subject to the attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion would waive the privilege, and to discuss a personnel matter involving non-elected personnel for the reason that public discussion of the matter would violate the privacy rights of the city employee involved. And then reconvene in this room about 5:27.
Second.
Motion is to recess in the executive session until 5:27. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.
Should we just make a couple extra minutes in there?
Is there going to be any action?
Action anticipated afterwards?
I wouldn't expect so.
No, we don't anticipate any.